Hello, hello. Can you all hear me? Hello, hello. Alright. Turn the music down for myself. Not the music, the sound. Hey, Sculptor Revive. Glad you made it, and thanks for stopping your training so early. Asedin, hey, thanks for being here. Hope the audio is working. Let me check here. Everything should be fine. I'm always a bit cautious about the sound, because in the beginning I had some hiccups, you could say. And just want to make sure that everything works before I dive in. So, how is everybody? I hope you all have a great Sunday morning or evening, wherever you are. Let me quickly pull something up, because as you can see, I'm continuing with the anatomy study today. There isn't that much left. I combined a few of these objects already, so I don't have hundreds or over 100 objects anymore, but now it's getting closer to just a handful. So I have the eyes, the skull, the spine, arms, legs, the arm muscles, the torso, and the leg muscles all separate. And now I'm combining the face muscles as well as the neck muscles. So this is the last part. And I didn't prepare that before, because I just wanted to show you the new method that I used for combining everything and make the low poly mesh. So, Drawer96, hello, thanks for being here again. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah, I combined all of these objects, so it's a bit easier to send it over to another program like Maya or Blender. And I actually did a test render in Blender that I can quickly pull up. This one here. And it's really cool to see how it all comes together now with the rendering. And I noticed a few things that I wanted to touch up as well, or come back to, because there are a few details here that don't quite fit the skeleton, I would say. Thanks, Jar. So as you can see here, you can see the noise pattern quite prominently, and I wanted to reduce the effect a little bit to get it closer to a more convincing, realistic result. This is, I don't think it's natural, or that it's how bones look like. So, but the rest is, I think, coming together quite well. I really like this area here, even though these details might not be medically accurate. I still like them. I still like the appeal, but things like this, I think it's a bit off-putting. And yeah, there are a few things on the skull as well. I want to touch up the teeth a little bit, because right now they're a bit too smooth, I don't know. It's missing edges and hard corners, and it still feels unfinished in comparison to the rest. And other than that, I think this will be the final result for the skeleton. So yeah, quite happy with the details here, for example, with these little holes, and now with the arm and hand here. Yeah, I think it's coming along quite nice. And this render I did in Blender. I used the standard shader. I plugged in the diffuse map as well as the displacement maps there, and I pushed the limits with my PC because I couldn't use GPU computate, something like this. So I couldn't use the GPU for rendering at all, because I didn't have enough RAM, or I don't have enough RAM, VRAM for this one. And this is why I switched over to CPU rendering, and that worked fine, even though this render here took almost an hour. But it's like 4000 pixels high and full HD, like 9020 in width. So it's quite large, and I used quite a lot of samples, so there's no denoising on top of that. Navneet, hello. Sculpt to revive. Have you been on Zbrush Sculpt off yesterday? No, I didn't heard of that. Was there some kind of an event going on? Probably I've missed it. But yeah, I wasn't on anything yesterday. So one thing that I stumbled upon that forces me a little bit to switch over to Maya instead of Blender is the subsurface scattering algorithm right now. So I'm not quite sure if you can see it that well here, but there's a dark edge around the teeth where they meet the jaw. And a better example for that is this render that I did. And I tried out a new version of Blender as well, and they haven't fixed the bugs yet. But you can see that wherever the meshes intersect, it creates these black artifacts. And even though it's one object and not individual ones, there's intersecting geometry there, and this is causing these problems, which doesn't happen in Arnold. So this one is an Arnold rendering, and it's much better. I hope they fix it soon, or in the coming weeks or months, because then there's no reason for me to use Maya for rendering, and I can stay in Blender because I want to do the switch or get more familiar at least. Romina, I have exams tomorrow. Oh no, I wish you all the best. Hope you can get a good grade. Anatole, hey, how's it going? It's going pretty well. I'm just talking a bit about the skeleton and the next steps. So I will do a few cleanups of the skeleton, mainly the surface noise here on the leg, and I will straighten the feet as well, because right now they're at a bit of an angle, and this way I can put them flush to the ground. And now it's hovering, as you can see. So, and other than that, I will combine the rest of the muscles. It's just the face muscles and the neck muscles. Do the UVs, and then I can bake everything down to the displacement maps and the diffuse maps. So these are all the maps that I will be using. Maybe I will do a bit of shader work for the specular or like surface micro details, something like that. But modeling wise, this is the final episode or the final stream for that. So thanks, Anatoly. Anatole? Not quite sure if the E is silent or if it's pronounced. But yeah. Alright. I don't know if you remember, but last stream I had a lot of troubles getting the meshes combined, and I found a few new ways to avoid these mistakes, and I wanted to do the rest of the face muscle and the neck muscle now. So some people pronounce the E, I don't, but it's fine if you do. Anatole. Alright, I will try to remember. Alright, so I make sure that I combine everything, or I only make the stuff visible that I want to combine. This is the way I wanted to say it. And I noticed that there is a bit of a broken, or not broken, but missing color here on the back side. And just quickly fixing these arrows that are still here. Just cleaning a few things up. And as always, if anyone is new here, please feel free to ask any questions, or if there's something that you want to talk about, even if it's off topic or might seem random to you, just let me know. This is more of just hanging out and making progress together. Alright, so these are all combined, and what I want to do next is I want to go through every subtool that is currently visible, and I want to make sure that they have the same subdivision levels. Because when I then combine everything by clicking Merge Visible, it will, for example, if I combine two meshes, one with like 6 subdivisions, one with 3 subdivisions, and I combine everything, I will have 3 subdivisions. So it will remain the lowest amount of subdivision levels. If I would have a mesh in there that has no subdivisions at all, I wouldn't have any subdivisions in the combined mesh as well. So I want to make sure that all of the meshes have the same subdivision level. In this way, yeah, it's just combined, but it will keep everything that I want. So let's go down here to geometry, and this one, for example, has 5. And let's look that up. So for the other meshes that I have here, most of them do have 4 subdivision levels. So I think I will probably stick with 4. And what would happen here is that it will only go to the 2nd subdivision level if I combine it with a mesh that only has 4. And I think that is fine in this case, so I will leave it as it is. Here in this case, it has 3. And one thing that I want to do for all of the meshes here that have less than 4 subdivision levels is I want to bring it to 4, freeze subdivision levels, and then I want to try to reduce the numbers of polygons so it will remain, or it will keep all the details at the 4th subdivision level. It's a bit of a confusing workflow in the beginning, but it's fairly straightforward, I find. So half, 0 measure, let's see how much I can get it reduced. So 280, and by manipulating every object individually, I can make sure that each object actually works. So in this case, I want to stitch these 2 together to midpoint, so 1 and 2, and this way it's a bit cleaner. And then I just have to click on unfreeze subdivision levels, and it will project the details from what I had earlier. And this is it. So I will go through the entire list now, and hopefully it's gonna be a bit quicker than last time. That's for sure that it's gonna be quicker. So unfreeze subdivision levels. It's already fairly low poly, but I think I can get it reduced a little bit more as well. 0 measure. So it went down from 484 to 238. And this way I don't blow up my scene with too many polygons. Okay. And with the arrow keys I can go down the list of the subtools, so you can see that I can switch between the different tools. Victorious, hey, how's it going? I'm doing fine. Just combining everything. These are the last steps in Zbrush today, and I think just for the rendering, for the preparation for the 3D print, I'm gonna jump back to ZBrush, but for the rendering and the finishing of the portfolio piece, this is probably the last stream. And yeah, my aim is to get the rendering of the muscles to the level of the skeleton that I have here. This is a test render I did in Blender. And I want to tweak the angle of the light a little bit, because right now it's coming straight from above. But yeah, as you can see here, the legs become quite dark this way, and I want to light it a bit more evenly. But I like the slight gradient from top to bottom. But yeah, there are just a few things missing here. Someone rang the bell. Not quite sure who that is, but I will quickly check the door. So just give me a second. Sorry. Oh boy, just a few kids that rang on the wrong door. So, where was I? Yes, I wanted to combine the rest of the meshes here. So, same here with the ear. No pizza, unfortunately. Maybe for someone else, but yeah, no, there were just a few kids. Sculptor Revive. General question, what do you think about ZBrush Core? Is it worth buying a core or a full ZBrush for Learn? $900 is too much for me now, and I only have 9 days trial version. ZBrush Core costs $175. Unfortunately, I'm not that familiar with ZBrush Core, and I don't know its functionalities. Another option could be the monthly subscription for the ZBrush, for the full ZBrush software. But yeah, unfortunately I can't really give a recommendation there because I'm not familiar with it. And I'm not quite sure at which state you are right now. If you're still learning and want to, or if you seriously want to pursue a career that heavily involves ZBrush, I would say maybe go for the monthly subscription. And it could be a motivator for you to push yourself a bit more because you pay monthly to have access to that software. And then you can offer that as a skill that you actually know ZBrush and can work within a production. But I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what your budget is at the moment. So maybe it's too early to buy the full version of ZBrush. I purchased it, I think, 4 years. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I purchased it a bit later when I actually started to make money with it. So this is when I made the jump to the full version. But yeah. Alright, unfreeze subdivision levels. And next one. So in this case here, it has 5 subdivision levels, so it will stay on this level of, or this amount of polygons here. and I think it's fine. Doesn't have to be higher than that or lower. This has 4, this has 5 as well. Yeah. I will not worry about the meshes that have more than 5 or more than 4 subdivision levels, because it will just delete the lower ones. And a total. Sadly, I've got to go, got lots of painting to catch up on. I'll pop by later if you're still streaming. Oh, don't worry. I wish you all the best with your painting, and I will probably stream 2.5 hours more, so I want to aim for 3 hours today, depending on how far I will come. Maybe I will get through the entire process quicker, probably not, so maybe we will see us later. So, happy painting! Hope you get the stuff done that you want. So, free subdivision levels. And yeah, it's a bit of a repetitive step here again, but having so many different objects, this is just a natural thing, I would say, that it becomes repetitive. So 1000, this is good. Oh, I forgot something. I have to subdivide them before I freeze the subdivision levels, just to make sure that I keep the 4 subdivision levels. So half, 0 measure once and twice, and unfreeze subdivision levels. Further down, this is 4, this is 5, that's fine, 5 as well, 4, 3. So bring it up to 4, freeze subdivision levels, and I reduced the number of, or the number for adaptive size, so it doesn't create more polygons around the curvatures. All right. And a few of them seem like they lost their polypaint information, but it just toggled off the display polygons, display polypaint. So I worried in the beginning, oh no, I lost all my information there, but it's just a display setting. All right, this one has 3 as well, so bring it up to 4, free subdivision levels. Lower the adaptive size, put it on half, so it takes into account how many polygons it has at the moment, and it will try to reduce it down. So maybe one more. This looks good. And what you can do to make sure or be on the safe side of keeping all the details is to see how many polygons it has before the remeshing, and I can bring it up to the 4th subdivision level. Now it has like 3 million polygons, but all the details that I sculpted were at around 700,000. So I'm trying to aim for a lower subdivision level, where the 4th subdivision level, or I aim for a low poly model that has around 700,000 polygons on the 4th subdivision level instead of the 3rd subdivision level that I had before that. So bring it down to, I have 44,000 here, 20,000. Let's see how many it has when I unfreeze it. So now there are more polygons involved, around 3 million, so the projection takes a bit longer. And you can see that the poly count is like twice as I had before, so I can go a little bit lower with the poly count here. So I reduce it again, and let's see. Sculpture Revive. Are you using changed UI settings and hotkeys? I use a few, but not that many. So when it comes to the menu here on the right side, everything is default. The whole layout is default, and the only hotkeys that I have is Control S for toggling the solo mode. Then I have the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for different brushes. So 2 for clay, 3 for damp standard, 4 for move, 5 for standard, and the 6 for inflate. And one big thing that I have, excuse me, is I do have a custom menu. So with the most common functions that I like to use, especially when I start a project, blocking out and extracting and all of that. So yeah, I created this one. But I would say creating a menu like this only makes sense when you have an established workflow for yourself for repetitive tasks. For me, it's character modeling, so it's quite specific, and a lot of people that use Zbrush are into character modeling. But there are a lot of different ways to get to the same result in Zbrush, so figuring out your own methodology, how you like to approach things, is a good start from where you can then reduce it down to your most useful tools and put it into a custom menu like this one. And I haven't used any custom things, even the brush hotkeys. I haven't used them for 9 years. So this year, actually, I started using more of shortcuts and custom menus. So you don't have to do that in the beginning, especially if you're not familiar with the tools yet. I always find, or the reason why I didn't use hotkeys and custom menus in the beginning was that it made it harder for me to follow tutorials and at least I thought, and showing it to other people as well. And switching PCs, for example, when I don't have access to my hotkeys was a big thing as well. And I just wanted to stay independent of the custom stuff, but nowadays it's, I changed my attitude towards that a little. So now, as you can see, I have around the same amount of polygons as I had with only 3 subdivision levels. So let's go to this one. Same thing here, bring it up 1 more, 3 subdivision levels. And I know if I just want to go 1 subdivision level higher by staying in the same level of detail, I want to halve the poly count that I have currently. So that should be fine. So 230. Yeah, it's still a bit higher, but fine for me. And here there are a few projection errors, unfortunately, so I will clean that up by hand. So auto groups and modify, no, not modify topology, to polygroups and merge similar groups in this way. It's more organized. Sculptor Revive. Okay, thanks. I'll make small changes. Zbrush is a very complex program, even though you don't have to know a lot of tools to do almost everything. But it can become quite overwhelming. So, but this is something that will be solved over time. I think it's just a matter of experience and getting familiar with the program. Yashvi, hello. Glad you made it. Just fixing a few things here, and then finally the study is done. So further down, this one has 3 as well. So 1 higher and 3 subdivision levels. Let's see, 2000, no, 1 more time. Let's see if it has any projection errors, and it does. I hope at a certain point getting these projection errors is a thing of the past. But I'm not quite sure how long it will take. So 1 more subdivision level. Let's go freeze. Sculpture revive. I want to know what's going on in the tutorials. Yeah, me too. Drawer, are these chicken wings muscles? I mean, these ones? It seemed like it, maybe. Alright. Bring it down 1 more. And there we go. And I think this is the last muscle here. And it's ready. All right. Let's see if this actually works or not. So all of the subtools that are now visible should be on at least level 4 when it comes to the subdivision levels. And now I can merge visible and we'll combine everything together. And it only has 2 subdivision levels here, so there's something fishy going on. Probably because I forgot to bring one to their highest subdivision level, the eyes. That should have been the error. So this all works. Let's do that again. And there we go. 4 subdivision levels. This is the lowest one. You can remove the individual colors and you can see it worked perfectly. Much quicker than the method that I used on the last stream. It took me like 3 hours and then I started from scratch last time. So yeah, as you can see with the head, it took me around 20-25 minutes, and it's a really solid result. So what I can do now is I can go to the Z plugin UV Master and say work on clone, and this way it removes all the subdivision levels and I can easily unwrap this one. And this is another thing why I wanted to combine everything, that I can use these automated processes like the UV Master to lay out all the individual muscles on one UV tile. And this way I only have one texture for each part that I save out and export to the other program, instead of having 100 textures, diffuse and displacement, that I then have to connect to the meshes in the shader. And yeah, this is not something that I wanted to do. So I can, now that I have no subdivision levels here, I can click on flatten and check if I have any messed up things here. And you can see that I do have a few here. Not quite sure where they come from. So I think I will try to go to auto groups and click through the meshes here just to see if there are any missing pieces, like leftover geometry inside of geometry that I sculpted. That can sometimes happen. And I think I found them. So I'm not quite sure what these are. But I want to remove them. So I won't do it here in the clone that I did for the unwrapping, but here in this one. So you can see that there's some weird geometry going on here. Something that I should fix. Maybe I fix it in the uncombined version. So yeah, we got him. It's sometimes a bit frustrating to find these meshes or these arrows once it's, I don't know, once you went a few steps down the road, but better late than never. So let's see if I do auto groups. Just click on the mesh once, like this. I think I should just click on free subdivision levels now and delete hidden. Then I can say close holes, and I want to halve the subdivision levels here. No, I want to stay the same, actually. So it's around 3000. Let's see if it resolved all the problems. Sir Danielson is now following. Thanks for the follow. Let's see that there are a few projection errors here. I can easily just smooth out. And we have a watertight mesh again. So all the details remained. There's a bit of cleanup necessary here. Drawer, have you decided what poses to render? I won't put it in a pose. I will just leave it in the A pose or just the relaxed pose as it is right now. And then do a few views on that. So front view, like 3/4 view and stuff like that. Like a small turntable. Deado Rocket, hey, greetings. Greetings to you as well. Sculpture Revive, I found my mini factory. Do you have a 3D printer? Yes, I do. I printed out a few of my models. They're in the back of my room. And what I'm also doing is I print my own reference objects for drawing. So for example, this skull here, I printed as well, and I like to use them for having it in one hand and drawing it with the other. And it's a lot of fun to see your models come to life when they're printed. So Petar just subscribed. Thanks a lot. Alright, so now that this mesh is fixed, I will do the same here again with merge visible. And this should create my combined mesh with 4 subdivision levels. How much is a resin 3D printer? Recently got my first paycheck. They became a lot cheaper. So I would go for a mono printer myself, like a monochromatic resin 3D printer, because it's much faster and it has a higher resolution most of the time. So there is the Frozen Sonic Mini Mono. I'm not quite sure what it's called exactly, but I think it's around 400 euro. There are cheaper ones for 250 euros. Yeah, but you don't have to spend like 2000 euros anymore as you would if you wanted to purchase like a Form 1 or Form 2. So much more convenient than in the past. Augustine just subscribed. Thanks. Alright, so this looks good for me. Let's go to symmetry mode and unwrap it. And the printers that I have right now are the Elegoo Mars and the Nova 3D Bene 4. They're basically the same printer, and they already give really good results. So they're more on the cheaper side, but as you can see, even on the scale here, you don't see lines easily, and it really holds the detail quite well. And yeah, especially if you have the models on a shelf or anything like that, and you don't inspect them closely, they're amazing, the printers, and it's so much fun to have actual physical models in your hand that were just on a 2D flat surface before. It feels like a new model, a new piece of work that came easily. So Sculpture Revive, can I buy something from you like Autumn Girl or the skull? My mini factory show object not on sale. I think that's because I stopped paying the monthly fee for my mini factory. It costs like, I don't know, I think $25 a month, $25 a month, and I made, I don't know, $8 or $12 a month from the sales, so I only had a few, and it wasn't worth it for me. But I'm thinking about putting my models on Gumroad, as well as maybe, I don't know, specific tutorials or something like that. So this is coming. Maybe I should set it up next week. I think I will do that. I will try to set up the store on Gumroad next week, and then I will put the skull on there, as well as other models like the head sculpts there that are already on my mini factory, and maybe a few more as well. So maybe miniatures that I did. So yeah, more of these little creatures and characters come to life, and printers. That would be awesome. Resume Twitch from Twitch DK5. You use Photoshop for your work? Not at the moment. When I'm working on site at a studio, then I like to use Photoshop there, but for my purposes I like to use Krita, which is an open source software, so it's free and it can basically do 99% of the stuff that I need, and yeah, I really like to use it. and I don't have to pay anything, which is awesome. So let's see if the bugs are fixed here. So no broken meshes on the layout anymore. And this is exactly what I wanted to have. So I can copy the UVs and paste it in here. And let's give it a try just to see if everything works by baking a diffuse map. So we can go to texture map, create new from polypaint, and this will show if there are UVs at all. So draw Algo Mars 2 Pro sold out, can't even see the price. Currently, especially with the coronavirus and manufacturing side, it's a bit of a hassle. You have to be lucky to get one. X and B just subscribe. Thanks for the sub. All right, so now that I've merged everything here together, I can go into my main scene, so to say, to my folder combined, and insert the mesh here. Let's see which one has more polygons. Merge nasalis, this one here. All right, and there we go, I would say. Alessandra just subscribed, thanks. And now that everything is in this scene, I can go to the groups here and just delete them because I don't need them anymore. I made sure that I have versions of the scenes, so I could come back later if I forget something. But right now I do have everything that I want. So everything's there. Home gym machines are also sold out here in my country. I guess that's good. Seems like the people do something with their time. It's awesome. Zuhair just subscribed. Thanks for the subscription. It seems like the community post made a bit of a difference when it comes to the viewership. So thanks everybody for joining today. Really appreciate so many of you showing up and liking, and especially for all of the new subscribers here. For anyone that's new right now, this is an anatomy study that I started a few months ago, and I covered the entire process on stream. And yeah, it was a long process, but a worthwhile study. And it wasn't planned in the beginning, but this one will replace the old study that I had. So it will become a new portfolio piece for me. And I can show you the test render that I did on the skeleton of the skeleton, and I did this in Blender. So there are a few things here that I want to clean up next, now that everything is combined. And that is the surface noise here on the femur, I think it's femur. And maybe here on other parts where it is too prominent, probably here as well. Just reduce it a little and try to add more of these details that are carved in instead of corrosion that is on top of the surface as it is here. So I like the cubes of censorship. I hope they stay in the render. Yeah, I noticed that the live streams, once they were finished, they were flagged as not suitable for advertising, and I heard that it's bad for the algorithm when it comes to presenting it or recommending it to other people. So I think it's not because of the music, because I would get other notifications like that. But my suggestion or my not suggestion, my impression is that it's because of the breasts. So I don't know if it makes any difference at all, but yeah, I find it kind of funny as well. So, all right. So the teeth will be touched up a little. The surface noise here and the angle of the feet. So let's go from top to bottom. And I already did a little bit here, but I wanted to give it just a little bit of sharper edges. Let me actually get my anatomy sheet, just so I have more references to work from. And if anyone is interested in the reference sheet here, I made that available on my Patreon page, and it's like 99% of the references that I used for this study. So if you want to do something similar to this, this should give you a nice head start. And the reference or the links to the Patreon page are in the description. So let's zoom in here. Fortunately, it's really smooth here, but it should give a good reference. Let's put it here. So let's use the Move Topological brush. And this way I don't have to worry about messing other parts of the mesh up. Come on. Just want to make sure that I have both sides visible. Sculpture Revive, can you explain brush, tablet pressure, use global settings? Are you using this option? Yes, I stumbled upon scenarios where for some reason it was turned off. So this one was turned off and the brush behavior was completely broken. So I think I didn't have any pressure sensitivity then. So when you don't have any pressure sensitivity going for some reason suddenly, then try to see if the use global settings is turned on. I think you can just use custom settings here. It's just the fall off of the pressure. So this axis is how hard you press on your tablet, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, so it correlates to all these settings here. And I never changed these settings. I always used the default ones, and I make sure that use global settings is always turned on. So you have a consistent behavior across all the brushes. So Hey Stevens, how are you doing? Hope you have a nice Sunday. Today it's working a bit better than last stream, so I managed to combine everything, and I only have 9 subtools now. So all the low poly models are in place, and just to show you as well, I did a render of the entire skeleton. This render took like an hour, but it's also fairly high res, so 4000 pixels high, and a lot of polygons. But yeah, I noticed a few things that I wanted to touch up, starting with the teeth here. They were too blobby, so I want to give a few sharper edges there and reduce the surface noise in a few areas. Here it just looks kind of fake. So other than that, we're close. We're really close. EverQuest, thanks. Hey Michael, how are you doing? Brazilian, I thought you meant the sculpting took an hour. I wish. No, that would be too much to do in an hour, I would say. No, this process took quite a long time. So I started 3.5 months ago, I think. I streamed, I think, 20 times for this study. 22 times now. And always like 3 to 4 hours. So quite a long journey. Steven's doing great, still locked down in France, but more time to work on personal stuff. The render looks very good. Really like your studio lighting setup. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, this lockdown is really annoying. So hope you can make useful time or useful use of your time. I sometimes feel it's a bit... it's tough to, when there's no external structure to be efficient and do the stuff that you actually want to do instead of, I don't know, I tend to go on streaks in YouTube and all of that. So I spend a lot of time just watching videos and playing Sudoku for some reason. Brazilian. Wow, that is so much. I lose my patience with sculpting. I try to complete something in a day. Maybe that's not the way. I have to say, streaming the entire process was a huge motivator for me to push through that. It was so much more fun to sculpt alongside all of you. And it held me accountable to actually do the next steps and don't just stop the project. So that was quite motivating for me. EverQuest, why are you censored if that biological content? Because of the YouTube algorithm that can't distinguish between like sexual content or erotic stuff to artistic stuff. So even if I do anatomy studies and it's a tutorial for how to approach that stuff, if there's anything nudity related, then it gets flagged by the algorithms. So it's not censored underneath. As you can see, it's just boxes. So in the final renders, it won't be there, but for the streams, I thought, why not? Michael, doing well. First big dump of snow here, over 25 centimeters. Wow, already? Crazy. It got a lot colder over the last week, but we haven't had any snow or even frost here, so seems like you're far ahead. Spark, did COVID stunt your productivity? I would say not really, but because I'm not part of some studio right now, or in a university where I have an external structure and a framework where I can work in, or yeah, that I can use as a structure and guide to, I don't know, lay out my week, my day, and stuff, something like that. It made me aware of how challenging it is to be a complete freelancer that is responsible for everything. So yet it uncovered a few challenges that I would have faced anyway in the future. So hopefully it's beneficial. But Atlas 2.0, I hope you have a nice day as well. Brazilian Dutchie, yeah, that is amazing. It makes me feel like joining you actually. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks to the COVID, now I've got an excuse to be in my office as a 3D nerd all day. Yeah, I hope that's the use that people get out of the time right now to spend it on exactly the stuff that they want to do. And it just freed up a lot of potential, I would say, or changed up the game a little bit. That new options, options become available or seen. So, all right, where was I? I wanted to change the teeth. So let's hide all the muscles here. Infinity Trapdoor, hey, how are you doing? I saw that you wrote me on Discord. I will come back to you later. I just didn't found the time yet to answer. But yeah, after the stream I will do that. So back to the teeth here. What I can also do is just a few small details just to break up the clean surface. Since it's much smaller here, I will reduce the dynamic brush size. Just give a few details here. They will probably never be seen, but just for the peace of mind. And maybe it will give some specular highlights that could be interesting. And when I have a symmetrical object, when it comes to the details, I like to turn off symmetry close to the center of the mesh. And for example, for this tooth here, I would turn symmetry back on because it's not that visible or not that obvious that it's symmetrically sculpted. I think you can feel it a little bit, hopefully. Brazilian. Dutchie, when during the process do you start implementing asymmetry? I realize I hold off on it to prevent double work. Yeah, sometimes I I start a bit earlier with the asymmetry, depending on what I'm going for. If it's a stylized mesh or a stylized character design, most of the time it's purely symmetrical, until the really fine details like skin pores, and even Disney characters do have fine skin details. But other than that, when it comes to more realistic stuff, then I would break the symmetry earlier, because it prevents from this sterile look, I would say. Stevens, as long as you do not see the two sides at the same time, no need to remove the symmetry. That's true at all, definitely. I mean, even though these sides here, these details are symmetrical, or are they? No, they aren't. But if I would sculpt something here, okay. Why is it not? Oh, it's just too small. If I would sculpt something here, like some details, it wouldn't be a problem if it's symmetrical, even on a realistic sculpt. What you can do is, if you, for example, change your proportions more broadly like this, like if you want to break it on the big forms, you could save that on a layer and then sculpt all the other details on another layer. And if you want to sculpt symmetrically, you can just turn off the layer where you did the adjustments here, and your mesh would become symmetrical again. So for sculpting Peppa Pig. I think for Peppa Pig you would have to sculpt asymmetrically all the way. It obviously depends on your design, so there's no absolute answer to that. All right. Feels like the roots of the teeth are much more visible. So I will use the move brush here to move it down a little. And there's actually a deeper groove here on the bigger teeth. Brazilian dude. Oh, yeah, I'm on Twitch as well. I stream simultaneously on both. Bram, I'm from Cambodia. Hey, greetings from Germany to you. Stevens, it's funny. I've started to use layers in Zbrush very late, only because I had to. I do not find the process user-friendly, like being on a layer at the right subdiv with rec enabled. Yeah, it's a bit of a hassle, and I try to use layers only when I'm in the last stages of putting all the fine details there. During the sculpting process, where I block things out and stuff like that, I don't use layers at all. Only for when I'm starting to use alphas and when I want to combine details and want to have control over the intensity of the individual sections that I sculpted. But yeah, layers are they could improve the layer system there a little. Not quite sure how, but I feel like there's still potential that they haven't really used yet. Alright, here there is an intersecting mesh. I don't want to have that at all. Yashvi, how to sculpt skulls, bones individually without making it too much heavy for software. Skulls, bones. Do you mean the individual sections here, like the individual plates of the skull, or do you mean like the entire skeleton? And just in general, it's much easier on your PC if you have a few more subdivisions instead of one big, a few more subtools instead of one big object that contains everything. The skull sections. What you could do is you could mask out. Let's see. Just a quick demonstration. You could mask out these individual plates here. And this mask will define the transition point or the edge of your mesh here. And I won't do it for everything, just for this one. And then you could go into extract, turn off extract surface smoothness, and put the thickness to the thickness that you want to have for the section. So this was a complete mess. Turn off double and accept, and obviously the depth was too much, so I can delete that and then make a mess. Yeah. It had to be broken, so make it thinner, accept, and yeah, you could try to perfect the mask, but yeah, then you would have something like this that you could clean up and do that from both sides, and then you would have your individual parts of the skull. Tuan just subscribed, thanks. So yeah, I think in your case the extract function should be the best option. Brazilian Dutchie, the whole thing is 80 million. Yeah, it's quite heavy. It used to be around 110 subtools, so a lot of objects combined. And in the process of combining everything, I added a few more subtools, a few more subdivisions here and there to the individual objects, so it became quite large. So a good thing if you don't have a bulky computer is to always have subdivision levels with a lower one. So when you move around, Zbrush will switch to below subdivision to avoid lag. In the beginning, for a long time, I used Dynamesh for a lot of the processes, and when I assembled the characters or the parts of a character together, and I had a scene of like 10 million or 20 million polygons, but with no subdivision levels, it was way slower than it is right now, with like 80 million polygons, but all of the objects have low subdivision levels. you can see here when I turn the model that the muscles lose resolution, and when I let go of the rotation, then it switches back to the highest one. Brazilian Dutchie. I never do anything like that before. Mine are all 6 or less. This is so detailed, quite inspiring. Thanks. I have to say though, details and high poly counts are not the most important things. So like 90% of the work that you can see here was done at a fraction of the poly count here, because it wasn't about the details, it was about the form and the primary and secondary shapes. And the details are the icing on the cake, but it's not the foundation. It's not what makes the model look good. It's what makes it look finished, but not what makes it look good, I would say. How do you say that? The stuff that makes it look good is the primary and secondary shapes. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry. I forgot to turn the cubes back on. Now I'm busted. Pedro Nuez is now following. Dijon, hopefully it's the name. So like, do you start in Zbrush and then transfer to another program? Yes. This is the process that I'm in right now. I started the entire process in Zbrush, and now I'm preparing everything to send it over to Blender or Maya. And this is why I'm creating the low poly versions and the UVs, because sending over 100 million points or 80 million points, which transfer to around probably double the amount of polygons, becomes very, very heavy, and I don't want to deal with that. So I want to streamline it and make it more user-friendly. EverQuest. Yeah, direct ban, lifetime ban. All right, let's see. I'll do the same groove here for the lower teeth as well. And then I can move them up also, just a tiny bit. I would love to render in Unreal sometimes, but for now it's Blender for me. I mean, every software is some kind of a tool, and when it comes to shading and lighting and all of that, it doesn't really matter where you're doing it. When you get hired for a studio and they are using a different software, they can quickly teach you all the tools, all the technicalities of that program. But learning how to properly shade something and learning how to properly light a scene, that's a fundamental skill, like something that translates from one software to the other. It's the same as, like, if you are really good at drawing with a pencil, you can probably draw really good with a pen as well, or other tools, but having the eye and the knowledge of where to put the marks, that translates from tool to tool. So if you only have Unreal, only Blender for now, you can get hired at Disney just doing that, or you could get hired from or hired by any AAA studio out there if you can show good work in Blender. So don't worry too much about the software. Dijon, I've had lots of issues with making characters in Blender. Yeah, I think the biggest drawback for Blender right now is the performance and the limitations on poly count and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, the render here was done in Blender, and I've seen a lot of crazy works and pieces from people that only use Blender, and it's been used in all the big studios nowadays. So ILM, for example, people there use Blender, Framestore, Vita, it's everywhere. So it's good to know Blender, or at least you don't have to feel like you're missing out on something if you use Blender, not Maya or Houdini or anything like that. So, can you give a good tip for beginners to begin a new sculpting project? Good tip for beginners. If you're a beginner, I would say don't aim for perfection in the beginning. Aim for learning something new and step up your game a little bit. You don't have to compare yourself with other artists out there. Just try to be a little better than your last project. And when it comes down to the project itself, I would say try to break it down into a few milestones, like the blocking or the detailing phase, retopology, and try to break it down into small sections that you can then cross off or check off. Yeah, I mean, just work through them to get to the next stage. And if you don't worry too much about, or try to get as much reference as you can, if you stumble upon problems during the project, try to be really specific with what the problem is, and then try to solve that problem. Try to bring it down to a single question. For example, if it's, I don't know, what is the curvature of the bottom of the tooth here from the front tooth, instead of the tooth look wrong. Try to be as specific as possible. And it's a skill that you can train over time, so don't expect to find every mistake that somehow makes or bothers you. Some of the time you will not be able to pinpoint exactly what is wrong with the model. Try to get it to like 80% from the ability that you can, and then start a new project. So don't spend too much time on one single project, especially in the beginning, but try to do incremental steps. A little bit better from one project to the other, and then you're on a good track already. Brazilian Dutchie. Also, I highly underestimate the importance of expansive reference collections and organization. Could you elaborate on that? Yeah, I would say it's all professionals do use a lot of reference, and try to find a system for you that you can expand on. So in the past I did reference sheets in Photoshop where I made a collage of references, and it was a painful process, and I didn't really like it, and I never looked up these references later again because it wasn't that accessible. And I switched to PureRef for that reason, and I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just really like that software. It's so user-friendly to just drag and drop the stuff in there, and you don't have to organize it right from the start, but I'm trying to build my own libraries over time. It's not something that I set time aside and create like the entire reference sheet that I want and then do a project in one go. It's something that grows with the projects. So I had 1/10 of the references here before I started with that project, with the anatomy study. And then when I stumbled upon areas where I was missing references, I was able to look up these things specifically and add them to my library. And it grew over time, and then it turns into an asset for me. So this is a really valuable resource now for me that I can come back to. And since I put it together myself, I know where to find things that I need. And I started to do the same thing with other stuff as well. So I want to, like my next big library that I want to do is for character design, and I want to have a big library with, I don't know, medieval cloth, hairstyles, exaggeration of proportions, and everything when I want to look for inspiration for character design. And yeah, I would say this, like, my answer to that right now. Yashvi, how to choose reference? Because when I search for reference, I don't get reference from particular angle and get one reference only. Not quite sure how you approach your search for that, but what I like to do is to, for example, if I want to make a study of a skull, I would search for skull and would probably get a more generic reference like this one. And I sometimes type in skull views or side view or front view or something like that, and it would spit me out a few of these. And then I would try to find a reference. Maybe I will find something here. Where I would see what the names of the different parts of the skull are. I mean, I don't have it here right now, or I can't find something. Maybe let's explain it here. So I would search for example, for muscle anatomy or anatomy muscles, and I would find something like this, which isn't that helpful in itself, but the helpful thing here is that I get the names for all the parts, and then I would look these names up specifically. And sometimes when, for example, for the biceps, I wouldn't only search for biceps brachii, but also for biceps brachii origins or biceps brachii insertion points, something like that. So I would get isolated references for these things. And the same with the skull here, or the skeleton. You could say, you could look up a reference where you get an overview with all the names, and then I could specifically search for radius and ulna, for example, for the bones of the lower forearm. And by being as specific with the parts that you look for, you will get better reference. So I hope it helps. Brazilian Dutchy, there are so many tips and advice on these streams. I wish I could look it back. Will you archive your streams? Yes, I archived my streams, but I made them available for my patrons. So I have, I think it should be 30, 35, maybe 40 streams already. And if you want to look back on those, you can get access to that through my Patreon. This is something that I decided when I started these streams. And what became apparent is that there are a few things that repeat from stream to stream, a few questions, and I want to do videos in the future where I answer the most common questions. But yeah, most of the time it's like situational advices, and this is why I'm doing these streams, to address those questions as directly as possible. So in Game Art College, we had to collect reference at the start of each project once. That was it. Doesn't grow with the project after it's put away forever. I like your way better. I got sick of doing it every time. Yeah, especially if you're doing it over and over again and then throwing it away over and over again, then yeah, it's quite unmotivating, I would say. Having these libraries is a really good practice, I think. Sculptor Revive, nice teeth. Thanks. Hopefully it's more convincing than it was before. Come on. Why is it not masking? Strange. Yashvi, I searched for a particular tribe and I found one male character attractive, but it has one image only. Don't know how to make side angle of the person particular. That's where I'm struggling. Ooh, that's a bit more tricky. Maybe you can find similar tribes or references from a similar ethnicity, and then you have to abstract it. Sometimes, especially when you're going for very specific designs that are not that common, you have to come up with your own interpretations. And this is, I would say, more advanced thing to be able to be independent of your reference, just to use it as an inspiration or as a direction, and then add everything that you learned before that to that, without being reliant on specific references. But yeah, this one is more tricky, I would say. What was the sculpt of yesterday? I didn't hear from that, or unfortunately, it seems like there was some kind of event, but I'm hearing of that for the first time now. So maybe I missed the event of the century, the Zbrush Summit. Damn it, completely missed that one. Could everyone participate in it? I wasn't aware that it was something that other people could participate in. 3 hours to do something on the stream. Ah, god damn. That would have been a lot of fun, probably. Steven, subscribe. Thanks. 3 hours sculpting. Steampunk. That would have been fun. No, unfortunately, I missed that one. But steampunk seems like there would have been more hard surface involved, which I'm not that familiar, or I don't do that often, but it would have been probably a lot of fun. Yeah, Shvi, I just didn't know about it. I wish I did. I probably would have participated in it, but yeah, I missed that completely, so have to wait for next year to join there. I really enjoyed the sculpt-offs in the past, and yeah, it seems like all the industries and all the events are opening up their challenges and stuff like that, so yeah. Now I'm a bit smarter. Hopefully for next year I can attend that. Kleigen, the teeth line leaning up applies only in females or also in males? No, it's probably a mistake from my side right now that they're completely lining up. They're usually a little bit offset. So here you can see that it's like by half a teeth. So maybe I will change that here. What kind of work are you hired for? For characters modeling most of the time. So I will get a concept and then I will translate it in 3D, and sometimes for animation as well. Can I ask something? Huan works with Zbrush in Spiroi. If it's a drawing tablet, a graphics tablet, then I think for sure, because it's just a mouse with pressure sensitivity. You should subscribe for Pixelogic newsletter. I think so. They will directly mail you. Yeah, maybe I should do that. So, Beacon. Actually, I do use a Huon product. It's the Canvas 13 Pro, and I really like it. So, I think if you have a graphics tablet there in mind, just go for it. It's more on the cheaper side, so it should be cool. Thanks for the subscription. So let's rearrange them just a little bit. It's much cheaper than the Wacom alternatives, so yeah, but the Canvas 13 was, I think, 400, 300, something like that. But it was totally worth it. Just making a few adjustments here. language. I used to learn French for a few months, but I wasn't in an environment where it was practically useful for me, so I stopped learning that for a few years now. So other than that, not at the moment. I'd like to come back to it, but I think I would have to have a practical reason just to be able to get use out of it and make connections more easily. Oh, Russian is interesting as well. Cool, man. Klagen. I've seen skulls with the teeth lines either straightforward or leaning up. That's why I was asking about if it's a trait for male or female. I'm not sure. There could be a difference between males and females, but I'm not familiar with those. There are bigger differences on the skull itself, but specifically for the teeth, I haven't stumbled upon specific information. Sculpt to revive, yeah, that would be awesome. I would really like to participate in the sculpt-off. It's just so much fun to see what people can do in like 3 hours or in a specific time frame, and especially when it's not so much about the getting like a polished result or making a portfolio piece, but more about fun process and most of the time funny ideas as well. Hebrew, cool, and French, Japanese, cool. Thanks, Ashley. My flatmate is used to learn Japanese for a few years. Would be awesome to be able to travel to Japan. Or, I mean, in general, like when it comes to languages, it opens up a whole new world, so really cool. Cesar, this is the link for the final pieces if you want to take a look at them. I think YouTube is blocking any links. It's probably on the official Pixelogic website. Hopefully they will display it there. Zbrush is like Blender, but better. Zbrush is quite different from Blender. And they have different use cases. Blender has similar tools, but it's just a small part of Blender. So, but yeah, the old discussion about what is better. It's both. All right, let's give it a bit of asymmetry on the teeth here. Alright, good enough. Dragonborn Baby. Cool name, man. Hi, I've randomly come to the stream and want to tell you about an echorche model. Clean skin really that is extremely detailed and correct except the proportions which I've used. Ah, there will probably be a second part of the comment. Yeah, it seems like there's a limit to the letters per comment, so unfortunately I only can read till which I've used while, so Beacon. You haven't seen the entire study yet? So yeah, I have more than just the head there. Alright, so the teeth I think should be good. Let's do some adjustments on the leg details here. Sculpture Revive. Okay, I'll choose Zbrush monthly subscription. I think that's a better idea after 6 months, when I feel that I'm getting better and will still love it. I decided to buy Zbrush. I think that's a wise decision. It's just because there might be the case that sculpting is not for you, and then you would have spent quite a lot of money. And yeah, I feel like having a subscription is a good motivator to actually make a use of it. So yeah, I hope it opens up new opportunities and especially a bit of motivation to study and practice. So all the best with the studies, man. Yanni's live. Good work. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Beacon. Cesar, I just noticed you're one of the few Zbrush users that don't use a custom UI. Yeah, we had that earlier. I only use a few shortcuts, and I do have a small custom menu that I created myself. This one here. But other than that, I used the standard UI for 9 years, so it's sufficient. You don't have to do a fancy setup. And Kuru, hey, thanks for being here. Dragonborn Baby, you really can't see the second part of the message. Nope, really. So there's only dot 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 after the while. So it's just after the accept the proportions in brackets, which I've used while dot dot dot. There isn't anything displayed after that, unfortunately. Beacon, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Glad you found the video. And till next time. The next stream will be on Wednesday. I will probably continue with the anatomy study and maybe finish the rendering, and then I will do a version of the model where I will combine it and make it ready for 3D printing. So hopefully this is happening in the next 2 weeks, and then I'm done completely. We're looking forward to that. Hangover, hey, glad you made it. Oh no, I have only 30 days of Zbrush. I have to sculpt. Yeah, exactly. Nee, I don't receive notice. That's strange. Glad you made it anyways. Yeah, I don't know, maybe hit the notification bell. I don't know what what you have to do to do that, but Zbrush and their notifications, YouTube and their notifications is something's fishy there. I'm not quite sure. While creating my portrait echorche model a few months ago, if you're interested, I can show you what I mean. It was a great help for major and minor muscle forms and connections. I know about websites, like medical websites. Let me see. Anatomy. I think I had a fairly good website. Let's see. Someone just subscribed. Thanks. Let's see. There was a website where you would have a 3D view, and you could toggle muscles and all of that on and off. And anatomy. zygotibody.com. So this website here. This is fairly useful, I would say. It's not that pleasant aesthetically. I mean, you could argue that the forms could be improved and all of that, but when it comes down to the knowledge that is in there and all the information here, this is quite helpful. So you could just click on the humors, for example, and you could find like the insertion points or the basic forms, and especially with the muscles for the biceps, you could see where the origin and the insertion points are. But yeah, it doesn't offer too much detail, I would say, and not good reference for forms, but for like the information itself. So Hangover, I have a question. In your latest video you did a pumpkin sculpture, and in the final render there was very little details, but they gave it a lot of feel. The things hang on the edges. How did you create them? Basically the same way I created the details here on the study. So if I subdivide the mesh here, you can see that it has a few details here as well. And the way I did it was I had the subdivision levels that I wanted, and I created a morph target, went to surface and added a noise. Let's make it really obvious, and applied it. So I would have something like this that I could apply to the mesh. I would then dial it down to the general strength that I would go for, something like this, and then I use the morph brush, and by holding down the Alt button, the Alt key, I could exaggerate the details of the noise in areas that I wanted. So this is just exaggerating the difference that is stored in the morph target, and this way you can fairly quickly add add details to specific areas and blend it into the rest of the mesh. You understand about this? But there was in the final render hanging from the edges like a string from it, like it was torn apart and little strings hanging. That was painted over. Like the small, like salvia, like a bit of liquid that was running down, or I don't know, maybe spider webs, however you want to interpret that. I just painted that in Krita, which is similar to Photoshop. So it's not actually in the model or in the 3D scene. It's it's faked, I would say. So. Blossom. I think Fynn like that sound when someone subscribed. We can see a bright smile on his face. Yeah, I just appreciate it if I get the feeling that people like the stream or get something out of it. So this is the main reason why I'm doing all of this, because having videos like this was a huge factor for me when I started out. It was quite the motivation. And if someone gets something out of the videos that I'm doing, then no, I'm pleased. I just like it, and it motivates me to keep on doing this stuff. So thanks for all the subscribers and likes and whatever. So Dragonborn Baby, what I'm talking about is actually a tool inside of Zbrush, so it's very good for reference and studying. Yeah, I saw that there's a model of Ryan Kingslin, an anatomy tool, which is similar to what I did here as well. So yeah, if you want to use that as a reference, that's totally fine as well. Blossom. I see. So second, do we have multiple accounts? With how many accounts have you subscribed? Is it more than the 2? Alright. Let's go to the model here. So I wanted to reduce the amount of noise here, just to smooth it out a little bit. I will let the RGB still visible so that I don't smooth the RGB. How do I approach that the best way? So let's crazy that it has the morph target in there. Don't know where that comes from, but it comes in really handy for me right now. Brazilian Dutchie, I became a patron, but I did the wrong tier. I think I can only see 2 streams. You should have. Let me see. Let me quickly. First of all, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. It should open up a post in the on the Patreon page, which should lead you to a playlist where all of the streams are in there. Also, no link to the Discord that I can find. There is a maybe I should write that in my bio. There's a resource out there that shows how to connect your Discord with your patron. So Patreon Discord. So with this one you should be able to set that up. And when it comes to the streams, it's the first stream that is posted should include a link to the playlist with all of the live streams. So Nikita, hey, thanks for being here. Let's turn off the polypaint for now. Just want to reduce the alpha maps here. Perfect. Glad that it worked. And if there's anything that is unclear or something like that, maybe later when you stumble upon something, you can write me anytime on Patreon or on just in the different channels on the Discord channel as well. All right. I'll try to be fairly quick here, just so I can start with the exports and all of that. And then it's time for jumping into Maya and setting everything up. So, what did I want to do as well here? I wanted to change the angle of the feet. So let's go to the plugin, Subtool Master, low res visible. This will go through all and set everything to the lowest subdivision level. And this way I can go to the Transpose Master and combine everything together, so I only have to do the changes once. Let's activate the floor. And let's try to angle it this way here. Just want to make sure that the line here is lining up, so to say. Update in Zbrush is free if I buy Zbrush 2021. I think if you're subscribed then as long as you're subscribed, you will get the updates. If you buy a perpetual license, like I did, you will get all the updates for free. So I bought it when it was like Zbrush 4R6 or something like that, 4R5, not quite sure. And I got every update since then for free, which I really like. I love the license policy of Zbrush. All right, this looks good. Just a small change here, but it makes for better presentation later. They still do have the perpetual license, which was a really good news when I heard about that. I was a bit scared when I heard that they offered subscription, but yeah, since they're still keeping the perpetual thing, that's awesome. All right, so I think all of the low poly versions are there, all the UVs are in place. I did the changes. And one thing I wanted to test out, because when I looked up when I did the test render here, the poly painting isn't that visible. I think it's supporting the details already, but there isn't. You can't really see that there's polypaint information there. So what I wanted to do is to go into the different skeleton meshes here and do like a color adjustment on the polypaint. So let's go to polypaint, adjust colors. Let's, for example, take this view here, and let's see if I just crank up the RGB intensity. That looks like crap. It looks bad as well. Brazilian duchy, really? Maybe they have changed their policy. That would be a shame. Hope not. Let's RGB contrast. Red contrast. I'll just test out a few things here. Red intensity. Nope. RGB contrast, that's it. So let's put it to 0.1. Yeah, I think this brings it out a little bit more. Maybe they're forced to make the switch I mean, there are people that bought it 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and they still get all of the updates for free. So yeah, maybe something like a 10-year update thing would be cool, or a few years at least. But they're an amazing company and they do a lot for the artist community. So it's understandable if they do the switch, but yeah, just one version, just 1 year of updates feels a little bit too little. Then it's not really it is a perpetual license, but tough times. Maybe it was because of Corona. I don't know. Probably not. So RGB contrast 0.1, and lets the polypaint pop just a little bit more. So or 0.2. Let's do 0.2. Let's be a bit braver than that. 0.1 here, just on top of it. X-Base program, it's Zbrush. What's currently discussed in the chat. So, frame. That's way too much. So 0.1. Because if it feels quite heavy right now here in ZBrush, but if I bring up the render here, it didn't really show up at all. Like a little bit here, but I think it could be a little exaggerated. Let's see. All right. There's polypaint information here and there. Everything is in place. All right, I would say let's export the eyes as well. And the muscles. And the cube, just for fun. Yeah, I hope the render is will turn out good, but we will see. So let's do the subtool master again with low res visible, just to make sure that everything is on the low subdivision level. And then I can do FBX export. So FBX export visible turned on, and I will save it to my project folder. So anatomy study, anatomy study 01. Let's see, and then I will jump into Maya and see if I can set up the first shaders and the lighting setup. I will scale everything up so it has a proper size, and then we're good to go. Dijon just subscribed. Thanks, really appreciate it. Hey Lucas, not quite sure what that is, but it seems fishy. All right, let's see. Let's open up Maya. As you can see, I only have a student version, but it's still usable. So let's import a scene, project, characters anatomy study, and let's see if it can load everything that I want. All right. That looks great. So let's give all the standard standard material, and then I can optimize the scene to get rid of the materials that I imported. And let's check the scaling settings. It's centimeter. So what I like to do is to just create an object that is somewhat like a primitive, and I will let's do it in the real scale. For production, most of the time we use 1 to 10 scale. So something that is like a meter tall would be 10 centimeters here, or 0.1. But yeah, let's actually do that. So I will do it to like 1.80 meters, and then I can group all of these together and scale it accordingly. Let's bring it down to the plane. Set the origin to the origin, the pivot to the origin, and scale it up to the proper size. So there we go. And let's create a plane again for the studio setup. So something like this, backdrop, and let's bevel the edge here to something like this. I'll just insert a few edges here to hold the shape, and what I can then do is to go to a smooth layer, or where is it? Smooth. It's like a subdivision modifier. Let's undo that actually, because I forgot to add a few here. Smooth, and this is smoother than before. Hey Nasia, glad you made it. X-Space, how are you doing with the epidemic? I'm doing fine, I think. It's a bit annoying. I really don't like the wearing masks for a longer period of time, especially when it's in trains and stuff. Then it's really annoying on long rides. But other than that, I mean, I work on the computer most of the time, so it didn't really affect me. But hearing from other people how it affects their life is kind of bothering. There's just so much struggle going on right now because of all the measurements that were put in place, that it's just a strange time. Are you just drawing or are you doing for the game? Not quite sure what you mean with that. So, freeze transformations, the same here, freeze transformation. Let's check if the UVs are in place. And that looks good. There are UVs here. There are UVs here. Here. On the arms. Face. Everything is there. Perfect. Alright, so what I'm gonna do next is let's create a basic material for the ground. So AI standard surface, and let's do some kind of a gray with very high roughness, something like that, and that should serve as a nice backdrop. Let's create a, how do I approach that? First, let's get a bit more organized. So eyes, geo, skull geo, spine geo, skeleton, arms, legs geo, then muscles, arms geo, then muscles, torso geo, muscles, legs geo, and muscles, head geo. Sensor blocks geo. Cesar, at my work they force me to go to the office 4 days a week, even that my job can be done from home. That's strange. They should leave the choice for the people to decide for themselves. Xbase, how many days did you do? On this model? On this model I would say it's roughly 3 weeks worth of work if you would do it in a studio. Just the time. Maybe less, 2 to 3 weeks. So, Omar just subscribed. Thanks for the subscription. Nazi, I have been retopologizing all weekend. All I see are quads. Yeah, retopologizing can be quite... how do you say that? Time intensive and monotone. Hope you get through the model that you're working on fast. It's more of a technical thing, so, and especially not some kind of a creative process, so it can be quite draining. But once it's done, it's always a good feeling. What I'm doing here is just to fix the intersection that is somehow occurred. So I'm just taking the inner side and pushing it further in. Oh damn, nausea. Huh. Maybe you can, I'm not quite sure what kind of objects you're working on, but some objects can be retopologized with the automatic tools. I think Blender has automatic retopo as well. But if you're working on a character, then that's a bit more tricky. If it's like hard surface stuff, then that's probably a bit easier, but yeah, hopefully you can make it. Wish you all the best. Alright, that is in place. Let's do a quick light setup and see how it looks. So Arnold lights, and this is a fairly straightforward one. So I will just use an area light at a slight angle, something like that, and make it really large. So something like this. And I'd like to set my exposure here at like 10. Not quite sure, I have to see later. And without any shader on here, I will try to see if the lighting itself is actually passable. So let's run IPR. And the lighting can be, the light can be increased. So let's put it on 2, much better. But I want to have it more from the front. So I paused the rendering for a second. And I think this is a good start. What do you think will be popular? I have no idea. This is something that, I don't know. It's a bit of luck, it's a bit of awareness of what is currently culminating under the surface, but I have no idea. I mean, no one would have expected Among Us to be a big thing, and it blew like up like crazy, or Flappy Birds or something like that. I have no idea. Thanks, Nazia. Yeah, I was surprised when I tested out this light setup, what cool of an effect it gives with so little effort. It's just one light source. What you could do is to add more fill lights, like colored lights as well, like a blue light here and a red light there, or an orange one. But this is already a good start, I would say. So let's pause the rendering and set up a camera. So create camera, panels, look through selected, and I will use the film gate here to set up my scene. I will use a focal length of 50 because it's closer to how the human eye sees. X-Base Corporation, I wish you good luck with the channel and your hobby. Good luck. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Alright. You know what? For the test of the shaders, I will do a close-up, something like this, and set the camera, render cam 01. This is the backdrop, geo area light main, and I should actually save my file here. So projects, render version 2, save. Alright, so I will probably go on for like half an hour. I just want to get a test render going, and then for next time I will probably show the finished renders and talk through the stuff that I did to get it to that level, because it doesn't make sense to stream hitting a render button and waiting for half an hour for the finished rendering. So yeah, I will do a little bit more today, and then I will hopefully show on the next stream the finished result. So let's set up the shaders for the individual parts here. So let's create an Arnold standard surface shader. This one is gonna be called Matte Skull or Skull Matte. This way I will see the object here better. Odon, not quite sure how to pronounce that. Hey, I just now joined the stream. I was searching 3D anatomy and came across your stream. Are you going to animate the final result, including individual bones, muscles to flex, skin, hair, etc.? First of all, welcome. Glad you found the stream. I won't be rigging it. I won't be animating this model. It's just a study for a static image in the end, and this is a test render that I did in Blender, and I want to get it to finished presentation. I have to switch to Maya because the subsurface shader has its limitations in Blender, and this is why I switched to Arnold, because Arnold doesn't have these limitations. Right now it creates dark edges around intersecting meshes, and I don't want that. And yeah, I will save out these renders, and this will be the end of the study, and then I will start a new project. So probably like working from a concept and bringing it to a production level quality. Ninini, I go bye. Thanks for joining, and have a nice day. Right, skull material. Let's create the base color, file base color, and put it into the subsurface color as well. And this one is... of course I forgot to bake all the maps. So let's quickly do that, because without maps it doesn't make sense to start with the shaders. So export maps for visible subtools. I want to do that, but I will hide these meshes that I don't need. So displacement map and texture from Polypaint. And I set the resolution to 8K, and in the displacement option I turned on Smooth UV, 3 channels, 32-bit and EXR. And if you want to combine the maps, you would have to turn off EXR, and then you could say merge maps. Otherwise it will not allow it. And I also set midpoint to 0, which is very important. So with all of that in place, I will create a new folder, textures v2 and save it. Right on, thanks for letting me know. It's pronounced Odon. I see. You got it right. I'm currently studying muscle rigs that can flex to deform surface skins from designs I created in Blender and Zbrush. Ah, that's awesome. Muscle rigs are tough, so, or at least I heard. But I always was fascinated by the rigs. I heard like Ziva, for example, is a cool tool. And I tried to get into muscle rigs when like a few years ago, but it was too much for me. So all the best with your rigs. Let's see. Zbrush is currently going through all the different tools, subdividing everything to its highest subdivision level, exporting all the maps, and you can see on the left side sometimes the textures popping up. So Blender has one muscle system, but man, that one is outdated. Yeah, if even the one in Maya is, I'm not quite sure if it's that up to date. The in-house, not the in-house, the standard muscle system that ships with Maya. I think most of the big studios out there either use proprietary software or plugins that they bought, so, or Houdini, probably. Sculpt to Revive. Do you play any games? At the moment, not really. I played a little bit of Among Us with a few friends of mine, which was quite stressful, but a lot of fun as well. But other than that, a little bit of Sudoku, but just from time to time, but no video games at the moment. I used to play a lot, like Halo on the Xbox, because I was playing with a few friends of mine. Warcraft 3, I played quite a lot through Battle.net and all of these multiplayer networks. And Anno, I really liked Anno, but in the recent time, no, not a lot. Let's see, subdivision level was at 1. All right. So let's get the textures. Skull texture map open. And let's set the roughness to, I think it was like 0.5, 0.6. Let's put it to 0.6. And then the subsurface to 1. The radius to something like this maybe, and the scale to 0.1 for start. Let's use random walk 2, and I think this is a good base. Let's create a new displacement map, and for this I want to use the one of the colored channels into the displacement. And I use the skull displacement map for this one. Set the color space to, where is it? Raw. and displacement, that should be good here. Brazilian Duchy. Yeah, for that price it should be top notch. I had to leave Maya behind after college. The new system requires you to prove you're a student at a registered school. Yeah, Maya is still industry standard, but it's not a necessity anymore. Odon. No doubt I'm finding this be one of the hardest projects I've ever worked with muscles. Watching how Kratos from God of War was built inspired me to learn and hopefully build my own game characters. That's awesome, man. I'm not quite sure if it's accessible to you, but or if it's interesting, but you could look up Ziva, which is a plugin. Maybe this is interesting to you. It could be that it's something that you knew already. Hey Asli, how are you doing? Alright, now that is all dialed in. Let's see. Let's go to the mesh itself under Arnold. Displacement, subdivision. Let's go to subdivision Cat Clark. Let's go to 2 iterations first. Auto bump and enable auto bump. So actually let's zoom in and see if it worked or not. So let's open up the IPR. And you can see that there isn't any displacement happening at the moment. Sculpt to revive, where to learn to understand the textures and nodes. I don't think that there's a general resource out there except the documentation for Arnold or Maya. Search up for tutorials that offer similar results or projects that you're interested in, and they should walk you through most of the stuff. And it's something that takes a little bit of time. I thought Raphael talked about how he sculpted the muscle deformations in Zbrush to use as blend shapes for Kratos. Yeah, that would probably be the case for a game, because in-game there aren't or I think there are real-time applications out there that can do muscle simulations real-time, but it's very performance taxing, so let's see. Of course I haven't assigned the material yet, and it might be the case, or the reason why it's not showing the displacement there. So let's see, now it has to generate the Arnold specific textures, so it converts the textures that are piped in there into an Arnold native format, and this takes a few seconds. Odon, I'll look into Ziva, I didn't know of it. Thank you very much. I've only been at 3D modeling for the last 8 months, starting with Blender and started with Zbrush for the last 2 months. If you're more into modeling, and if you want to create the character assets, like the getting a concept and doing like a figure like I do right now, then don't don't dive into muscle rigs and things like Ziva. If you're more into rigging, then look into Ziva and do rigs and all of that. But when it comes to the models, I would say you don't have to dive that deep into these technical stuff, these technical things. So just focus on modeling if you want to create the asset. Yeah, I think you can get pretty far with blend shapes and tension maps. Even Blender has a solution for that. Yeah, that's true as well. Cesar, thanks. Yeah, I really like the subsurface shader. It just looks so good. Especially when the effect is so strong. But I have to reduce it, obviously. So let's go to Scale Material and reduce the scale to 0.01. Let's see how that looks. Waxy bones. Yeah, I would love to have more of a subsurface effect, but yeah, it's just not natural. Alright. It seems like the subsurface scattering looks good, but there is no displacement at the moment. So I have to look into that. What's causing it? Scale material. So there's a displacement map here, set to raw. Cesar, would you say Maya is easy to learn? Yeah, I mean, any 3D software is kind of complicated because it's a lot of abstract things going on. But I would say Maya is okay to learn. It's not super complicated, but it has its tricky things to learn. But there's a lot of resources out there, so whatever is more convenient to you. If you have access to Maya, use Maya. If you have access more to Blender, which anyone has because it's free, use Blender. Wherever you find the best resources for the stuff that you want to do. If there are better tutorials for the stuff that you're interested in Maya, use Maya. If there's better stuff in Blender or Houdini, 3ds Max, whatever, use these softwares. Sculpt to revive, how many polygons? Everything. The Zbrush scene has around 160 polygons, 160 million polygons. That's my estimation. It only displays points and it has around 80 million points, but it doesn't translate directly to polygons. So let's see. There's something's not working here. Let's create this part here again. Displacement shader. Don't have to use the engine. Displacement to displacement. Displacement map. Let's use a file should be. Let's use an AI image. Maybe that works better with the 32-bit files. So texture map, Scale TX, RGB there. This is set to raw. Let's see. Still no displacement. Let's update full scene. Although I'm focusing on building structures and sculpting. I started off building scenes from my favorite movies in Blender. I have a pretty strong foundation with the ring from watching Royal Skies. LLC. I mean, if you're more on the technical side, go for it. It's a really fun area to go in. But if it's more on the creative side, artistic, like, I don't want to separate these two completely, but there are more technical areas in 3D and more artistic areas in 3D. And when you're more on the artistic side, I wouldn't bother too much with the technical stuff and vice versa. Why isn't it working? Come on. So, yeah, go for the direction that you want to go in. Kit Clark. Smooth tangents. Diffuse transmission specular. Let's turn all of that on. Displacement height is at 1. Scalar 0. Value is 1. 0. Blossom, gotta go. See you next time. Have a good one. And thanks for joining. Sir, normal map? Nope. I want to use the displacement map here, but I'm not quite sure. Is the displacement map here? I don't know, maybe try a different alpha, different color channel. It should take a little bit of time. Arnold render is enabled. Arnold render here. Adaptive sampling. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. All right. Geometry, thin wall, nope. Not quite sure what's the issue here. It should have the material here assigned. Let's try it on a different object, like the muscle here. So let's create a new standard. Let's create it. Let's call it muscles torso met. And I just want to see if I can get the displacement working. So displacement shader, kill the engine here. Pipe it into the displacement shader. And let's create an a file. Let's try a file maybe. File texture, color R, and use the muscle torso displacement map. Open. And Let's see if that works. So muscle, torso, enable auto bump, cat clerk to 2, just to see if it works or not. Thanks, Slay, for the feedback. So let's test out the render. Feels like the light is a bit overexposed, so I'll reduce it a little. Maybe put more contrast in your displacement map. I think there's not an issue with the displacement map, there's just no visible change right now at all. So it feels like it's not calculated properly. So yeah, there's no information there. How do I troubleshoot that? Let's see. Projects, characters, anatomy study, textures. There is information there. I can see. I'm not quite sure if it shows up, but there are slight gray values here. And that should be enough. There isn't too much information there, but there has to be one setting that I haven't used yet. Let's take the hypershade again. Maybe let's just do it this way. SHXSI just subscribed, thanks. Let's do it this way here with the muscle torso placement map. It's set to raw. Maybe let's put it to. Is there linear? No, raw should be it. Filter type off. Let's try that. So let's try if there's a change. Hopefully it will show at least a few details. But it feels like this didn't work either. What could be the problem? I don't know, displacement not working. Good old Google, hopefully it will help. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry, UV tiling method, it's off. I'm not using any UVs at the moment. UDIMs at the moment, so there shouldn't be an issue with that. So Because if I don't have any UDIMs or anything like that set up, then it will repeat it even if the UVs are in another UV tile. Maybe this is something that I have to troubleshoot offline and come back on the next stream to that. So UV tiling method shouldn't make a difference. So let's just test it out for fun. No difference, unfortunately. And it does have the material assigned. It is the muscle torso material. I do have subdivisions on. Maybe let's turn off auto bump. Crank up the subdivision to 3. And just test it again. Because usually I just know the auto bump function that was usually just one button and not so many. Maybe there is something wrong with that. Hoshi Young just subscribed. Thanks. Hopefully I pronounced it correct. Okay, that didn't work either. So it seems like there's nothing coming through the displacement shader here. Floating point, absolute, sign code, object. I haven't... Oh, there's auto bump. This is what I actually wanted to have. Scale is at 1. This should work. Fulcan just subscribe. Thanks. Not behavior. Yeah, let's try noise. Noise. AI noise. Let's see. Out in the base color. I haven't played around with noise too much. So noise, stencil, texture, noise, texture. Alright, there should be something going on. So, ratio, frequency. So that should be visible. I hope. Let's see. If this doesn't work, then I will probably call it a day and then come back to the rendering next stream. Alright, that did something. It exploded completely, which is a good thing. But why is this one not working? Put Cat Clark. What's going on here? Alright. Yeah, there's something fishy going on. I do have cat clock for the subdivision. I'm not quite sure. Edge length. Height at 1. That should be all actually working. I mean, with the displacement map that I put in, there isn't any difference, so I should actually increase the scale to see if there is something going on there. I don't know. Let's try the... You know what? I will try to export a displacement map without the RGB values. So, subtools off. Not 3 channels, but 1. And only the displacement map. Create torso. Textures V03. Map extraction finished. Let's try it out. And then I will call it a day and come back to it later. So no tiling there. Let's put it to raw. Filter type is off. And the R value is in there. So let's test it out. And yeah, I will continue it on Wednesday, so the next stream will be in a few days, and I will test out the workflow until then. Didn't expect the displacement map not working, but maybe I have to switch back to Blender, even though the subsurface is yeah, making troubles. But yeah, let's see, let's wait just a few seconds. Maybe it made a difference, probably not. It actually made a difference. All right. Cool. Awesome. Then it's probably because of the 3 channels here. So let's actually do that for all subtools, all visible ones. And just a moment. So let's create all maps under a new V04 and save. So I will call it a day. This will render out, and yeah, it will export everything that I need, and then I can yeah, do the final renders next time on the stream. And till then, hope you have a good day. And yeah, the next stream will be on Wednesday, same time probably. And yeah, I will test out a few things before that to make sure that it's not all about troubleshooting and all of that. But yeah. So we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody for joining, and have a good one. Bye everybody.